Have you ever imagined being forced into something that would change not just your own fate, but the destiny of entire worlds? What if, in a single moment, everything you knew about pride, honor, and your own identity was turned upside down? In the heart of the majestic capital city of Atoria, golden spires reached toward a sky painted lavender and gold by the planet's twin suns. Massive marble halls stretched endlessly, echoing with the soft murmurs of courtiers and diplomats gathered from countless star systems. Today, however, the usual serenity of the royal court was fractured by tension so thick it could almost be touched. King Alaric sat on his throne, carved from the ancient bones of great beasts hunted by his ancestors. His silver beard glinted beneath the polished crown resting atop his head, eyes sharp and piercing as he regarded the silent assembly before him. His 3 daughters stood in front of the throne, resplendent in shimmering robes of sapphire, emerald, and amethyst. Alara, the eldest, proud and cold, Serena, the thoughtful and guarded middle child, and young Lyria, bright-eyed yet uncertain. At the heart of the chamber stood a single figure whose mere presence stirred whispers and unease. James Sterling, the human soldier, veteran of battles across worlds. He was tall, shoulders squared, his gaze clear and unwavering, despite being the object of 1,000 stares. His earthly uniform, simple, practical, and devoid of grandeur, stood in stark contrast to the ornate robes of Atorian nobility. King Alaric rose slowly, his voice deep and commanding as it resonated through the hall. "My beloved daughters," he said, "our world faces threats greater than ever before. Enemies approach, alliances fracture, and our strength wanes. It is time we embrace unity beyond our borders. Today, I decree the forging of a new alliance, an alliance that will secure our future." He paused, his gaze turning solemnly to Sterling. "James Sterling of Earth," he continued, "you have proven your honor and valor countless times. You represent strength, courage, and loyalty, qualities my daughters must learn to respect. Thus, you shall marry my daughters, binding our peoples together." The court erupted in whispers. Sterling's expression did not change, his eyes never leaving the king. But the 3 princesses exchanged glances of disbelief, outrage flashing across their faces. Alara stepped forward defiantly, her voice carrying authority and disdain. "Father," she protested, "you cannot seriously expect us to marry this human." The room fell silent, tension stretching taut. King Alaric met his eldest daughter's fierce gaze calmly. "I do not merely expect it, Alara," he replied firmly. "I command it. Your arrogance blinds you to the needs of our people. Perhaps this union will teach you humility and bring understanding." Serena's eyes flickered toward Sterling, curiosity battling with her innate suspicion. "Father," she said cautiously, "surely there are other ways?" Alaric shook his head gravely. "There are no other ways. The decision is made. 3 princesses of Atoria will wed the earthling warrior, and thus our worlds shall unite." Lyria, the youngest, looked shaken, glancing at Sterling with uncertainty. The human met her gaze with quiet reassurance, revealing a hint of empathy behind his disciplined exterior. Sterling finally spoke, his voice steady yet gentle. "Your Majesty, I did not come here seeking marriage or power, but I understand the weight of your decision. If it means peace, I accept your decree." Whispers rippled again. Respect flared in the eyes of some nobles, while others still harbored deep mistrust. Alara folded her arms, visibly bristling with wounded pride. "We are not pawns to be traded for alliances," she said sharply. King Alaric sighed softly, his tone softening but remaining firm. "This is not punishment, Alara. It is a lesson. The strength of our alliance depends not just on military might, but on understanding and mutual respect. Perhaps, through this bond, you will learn to see beyond your prejudice. Have you ever felt the bitter sting of forced acceptance, only to discover later that fate had something entirely unexpected planned for you? The princesses stood rigidly, each wrestling with their thoughts and emotions. Sterling's composure never faltered, his eyes calmly absorbing every subtle shift in their expressions. The court waited for their response, breaths collectively held, understanding the significance of the moment unfolding before them. Serena finally broke the silence. "If this is truly for the good of Vittoria," she began hesitantly, "then we will comply. But know this, we do so under protest." King Alaric nodded slowly. "Your protest is heard, daughter, but compliance is all that is required." He raised his hand, signaling the end of discussion. "Prepare for the ritual of unity. Tomorrow, the minds and souls of Vittoria's princesses and Earth's champion will become one." As the court dispersed, whispers surged louder than ever. Sterling stood alone, watching the three princesses depart, each step weighted with defiance and reluctant acceptance. And yet, within his thoughtful silence was a quiet certainty. Beneath the surface of forced unions and political necessity, something genuine could flourish if given a chance. Sterling turned toward the vast windows overlooking the capital city, gazing at the sprawling world beneath twin suns. This planet was not his home. These princesses were not women he knew, yet destiny had bound him here, intertwined his path with theirs. He accepted it, embracing the unknown future with resolve, hope, and perhaps even quiet anticipation. As night descended upon the capital, its sky glittered with countless unfamiliar stars. Sterling watched their gentle glow, wondering about the journeys ahead. Tomorrow would change everything, for him, for Vittoria, and perhaps for the fate of worlds yet unknown. Have you ever faced a choice that wasn't yours to make, yet found within it the promise of something extraordinary? If so, share your story below, because sometimes the greatest journeys begin with choices we never intended to make. The grand hall of Vittoria's royal palace glowed gently with the light of 1,000 floating crystals, each pulsating softly, reflecting on marble floors polished like mirrors. Every intricate carving on the walls spoke of history, honor, and power. Yet today, a different kind of tension lingered in the air, an anticipation tinged heavily with apprehension. James Sterling stood calmly at the hall's center, dressed now in ceremonial attire that felt foreign and stiff against his skin. His posture betrayed none of the discomfort he felt, his face an unreadable mask of composure. Across from him, the three Vittorian princesses stood in regal silence, their eyes cool and wary, each examining him with thinly veiled skepticism. Alara, the eldest, stood poised like an ice sculpture, beautiful yet untouchable. Her sapphire robes cascaded gracefully to the polished floor, her gaze sharp and unflinching. Serena, standing just behind her, appeared slightly softer, but her calculating eyes suggested a mind already assessing every potential angle. Lyria, the youngest, glanced between her sisters and Sterling, curiosity and doubt mingling visibly across her delicate features. The ceremonial priestess stepped forward, her voice resonant and firm, echoing gently within the cavernous hall. "Today, we gather to honor the union decreed by King Alaric. This ritual will forge a connection deeper than any political treaty, a joining of minds, emotions, and fates." Alara's lips tightened imperceptibly. Sterling could see her subtle recoil at the mention of such intimacy with a human, but she said nothing. Instead, her eyes narrowed as she stepped forward, breaking rank to speak directly to him. "Tell me, Earthling," she said coldly, "do humans always accept such arrangements without protest? Is compliance so deeply ingrained in your culture?" Sterling met her gaze steadily, not rising to her bait. "Humans understand duty," he replied calmly, his tone gentle yet unwavering. "But duty alone doesn't define us. We also understand compassion and curiosity, something your people seem to view as weaknesses." Serena raised an eyebrow, intrigued despite herself. "Curiosity? You think we lack it?" Sterling smiled faintly. "I think you fear it." Serena bristled slightly, stepping forward to challenge him directly. "What exactly do you mean?" He regarded her calmly. "Your culture values strength above all else, correct? Yet here you stand, uncertain, afraid of what curiosity might reveal, afraid it could shake your carefully structured beliefs." Lyria tilted her head thoughtfully, her voice softer and more hesitant. "And what about compassion? Do humans consider that a strength?" Sterling nodded. "It's perhaps our greatest strength. Compassion allows us to understand, to learn, and ultimately to grow stronger. Without it, we become blind to possibilities and deaf to reason." Alara's expression softened for just a brief instant before hardening again. "Fine words, soldier, but they remain just words." Sterling met her gaze with quiet confidence. "Give me time. Actions speak louder." At this, the priestess raised her hand gently, silencing further debate. "Let us proceed with the ritual," she announced solemnly. The ritual required no physical contact, only proximity. Yet, standing close to the princesses, Sterling felt an undeniable tension. The priestess whispered ancient words in the Atorian tongue, and the crystals above them began glowing brighter, their colors shifting to deeper shades. A strange sensation began to stir in Sterling's chest, as if invisible threads wove their way into his mind. He glimpsed fragments of memories that were not his own, vague yet powerful images of a childhood spent beneath lavender skies, training rigorously, hearing constant reminders of royal duty and pride. With a sudden clarity, he realized he was seeing through Alira's eyes, feeling her struggles, her fierce determination, her relentless pursuit of perfection to honor her lineage. Alara gasped softly, eyes wide with shock. She, too, now glimpsed scenes from Sterling's past, battlefields covered in smoke and ash, friends lost, and the quiet moments afterward, where he had silently mourned, never allowing grief to overtake his duty. Sterling felt her confusion, her reluctant admiration, and beneath it all, an undercurrent of vulnerability she'd never reveal willingly. He respected her strength, but sensed she carried burdens far heavier than any crown. Serena's memories poured in next, crisp and vivid. Her nights spent secretly studying the stars, hoping to discover truths beyond Atoria's rigid traditions, yet fearful of betraying expectations. Sterling's mind reached gently toward hers, offering understanding without judgment, acknowledging her quiet courage. Lyria's memories flooded him last, simpler, filled with bright laughter yet overshadowed by fear of inadequacy. He felt her desire to connect, to be more than merely a princess in title, yet uncertain how. As the ritual concluded, the threads of connection gently withdrew, leaving behind a silence filled with unspoken understanding. Sterling stepped back slowly, studying each princess carefully. "We may have been strangers moments ago," he finally spoke, his voice gentle but firm. "But now we have glimpsed the truths each of us carries. Perhaps our worlds are not so different after all." The princesses remained silent, visibly shaken. Alara recovered first, drawing herself upright proudly. "Understanding is not acceptance," she reminded him sharply. Sterling nodded calmly. No, but it is a beginning. Serena's eyes held quiet admiration. Perhaps, she admitted softly, but trust is still a long journey away. Sterling offered a small smile. Every worthwhile journey begins with a single step. Lyria glanced uncertainly between her sisters and Sterling. Can we truly trust someone from another world? Is it even possible? Sterling looked at her sincerely. Trust isn't given, it's earned. Allow me that chance and judge me by my actions. Have you ever been forced to confront your own beliefs, only to find your understanding forever changed? How did it shape your path afterward? As the princesses withdrew silently, Sterling remained standing in the center of the hall, feeling the lingering echoes of their memories. He knew this alliance had begun as a political arrangement, but now something deeper stirred beneath the surface. Curiosity, respect, and maybe even the seeds of trust. He turned slowly, walking toward the vast windows that overlooked the sprawling capital. Below, the city glowed gently beneath the twilight sky, beautiful and distant. Sterling understood the challenges ahead. Forging bonds between worlds was never simple, but perhaps through honesty and patience it was possible. As night fell fully upon Atoria, he stared thoughtfully at the unfamiliar stars. The journey ahead was daunting, filled with uncertainty. But Sterling had always been ready to face the unknown. This time, however, he knew he wouldn't face it alone. What do you think? Is trust truly possible between strangers forced together by circumstance? Have you experienced such a bond? Share your thoughts below. The evening sky over Atoria shifted gently from hues of soft purple to a deeper midnight blue, each shade blending into the next with an elegance uniquely characteristic of this distant world. Within the heart of the royal palace, James Sterling and the three princesses stood solemnly, bathed in the warm glow of a sacred chamber illuminated by countless glowing stones. The ritual chamber, hidden deep beneath the palace, was a place few outsiders had ever seen, its existence whispered of in reverent tones by generations past. Tonight was no ordinary night. It marked the binding ritual, a sacred rite designed to unify souls, a joining far deeper than any ordinary marriage. Sterling knew this was no simple ceremony. It was a profound act of trust and vulnerability. Each participant would see into the depths of the other's hearts and minds, exposed fully and completely. Sterling, standing tall and composed, was nonetheless keenly aware of the weight of this moment. The priestess stepped forward slowly, her robes shimmering faintly under the chamber's mystical glow. Her voice echoed softly, carrying an ancient power as she spoke the ritual words. Tonight, under the watchful gaze of our ancestors and the guiding stars above, we bind together not only worlds but souls. Your thoughts, your feelings, your very essence shall become known to each other. This is not a bond easily undone. Alera's gaze was unyielding, though Sterling noted the subtle tension in her posture. Serena's face remained carefully neutral, yet her eyes betrayed curiosity. Lyria shifted slightly, clearly nervous yet intrigued by the unknown ritual ahead. Sterling met each of their gazes with quiet reassurance, silently acknowledging the uncertainty they all shared. He took a deep breath, his voice steady but gentle as he addressed them. Trust does not come easily, he admitted softly, but perhaps through this ritual we'll find a path forward. Alera raised her chin defiantly. We will endure it because duty demands it, not because of trust. Sterling nodded calmly, understanding her resistance without judgment. Then let duty guide us, and see what truths it may reveal. The priestess gently directed them to form a circle, their hands almost touching, their presence alone enough to initiate the ritual. Closing her eyes, she began chanting softly. ancient words flowing like gentle water, filling the chamber with an ethereal resonance. Sterling felt it first, a gentle pressure at the edges of his mind, soft at first but quickly intensifying. Suddenly, waves of thoughts and emotions, not his own, surged through him, overwhelming yet fascinating. From Alara came pride, strength, and a fierce determination, but beneath it, hidden so deeply even she barely acknowledged it herself, was vulnerability. Sterling glimpsed her constant struggle, her fear of failure, the crushing expectation placed upon her shoulders since birth. For a brief instant, he saw through her eyes, a young girl standing alone, terrified to disappoint, silently desperate to prove herself worthy of a throne she had never asked for. Alara's breath caught audibly, clearly shaken. Sterling knew instinctively she had seen into his memories as well, scenes from Earth, memories of battles won and lost, moments of profound sadness interwoven with quiet triumphs, and the powerful sense of duty that defined him. From Serena came intelligence, curiosity, and a quiet yearning for understanding. He saw her nights spent studying star maps, seeking knowledge beyond Atoria, secretly questioning the rigid traditions that constrained her spirit. In return, Serena glimpsed Sterling's own moments of introspection, his calm courage during impossible missions, his quiet desire for genuine connection amidst a life filled with duty and sacrifice. Lastly, from Lyria poured innocence and optimism, but also a profound fear of inadequacy, a feeling of always being overshadowed by her sisters. Sterling saw clearly her constant internal battles, her deep desire to prove herself worthy, not just as a princess, but as her own person. Sterling's own memories returned to her. His training as a soldier, the lessons learned from failures, the friendships formed in adversity, moments of camaraderie, laughter, and hope. The connection was deep, intimate, almost painfully honest. It lasted mere minutes, but within that brief window of shared souls, something changed irrevocably between them. When the ritual finally ended, the room fell into profound silence, each participant struggling to process the intensity of their shared experience. Have you ever shared something so profoundly personal it altered your relationship forever? How did it shape your journey afterward? Alara was first to step away, visibly shaken yet attempting to reclaim her dignity. That was unexpected, she admitted quietly, her voice betraying an uncharacteristic vulnerability. Serena regarded Sterling with new, cautious respect. I never imagined humans carried so much complexity, she admitted softly, genuine intrigue coloring her voice. Lyria seemed unable to find words at first, her eyes wide with newfound understanding. I had no idea that such depth could exist beneath the surface. Sterling offered a gentle, reassuring smile. We often fail to see what lies beneath appearances until forced to look deeper, he replied calmly. Serena tilted her head thoughtfully. Perhaps this is the strength of your kind, that willingness to embrace vulnerability. Sterling nodded slowly. Strength is not always found in power. Sometimes it lies in honesty, openness, and understanding. Alara, though still guarded, met Sterling's gaze with less hostility. I admit, perhaps there is more to you than I first believed, she conceded cautiously. The priestess stepped forward, breaking their quiet exchange. The ritual has completed successfully. You are now bound at a level far deeper than mere words or promises. Your hearts and minds share an understanding few will ever know. Sterling watched silently as the three princesses left the chamber, each visibly processing the experience in their own way. He knew the road ahead remained uncertain, filled with challenges, but tonight a foundation had been laid, a foundation built not on blind obedience or political convenience, but on true understanding. He moved slowly to the chamber's exit, stopping briefly to gaze upward toward the distant stars visible through the skylight. The universe stretched endlessly beyond, filled with countless worlds, possibilities, and uncertainties. Yet Sterling felt a quiet confidence. For the first time since his arrival, he glimpsed a chance, not merely to unite worlds, but to build something far deeper: trust, respect, and perhaps even genuine love. Do you believe true unity between cultures is possible through empathy and understanding? Have you experienced a moment that forever changed your perspective on someone? Share your thoughts below, because sometimes understanding begins when we look beneath the surface and discover we are not so different after all. The days following the profound ritual passed quietly in the vast royal palace of Etoria, the halls echoing gently with whispers of curiosity and speculation. For James Sterling and the three Etorian princesses, Alara, Serena, and Lyria, life had shifted subtly yet unmistakably. They now carried glimpses of each other's deepest truths, a burden as much as it was a bridge. One morning, Sterling stood in the palace gardens, a lush, expansive maze of vibrant colors and fragrant blooms, alien in beauty yet oddly comforting. He moved slowly, silently, his footsteps careful and measured, his senses heightened, taking in every detail around him. The tranquil sound of distant fountains and the soft rustling of exotic leaves filled the peaceful silence. Serena found him there first, her expression curious as she approached him cautiously, breaking the stillness with her gentle voice. "What are you doing, James?" Humans seem to find peace in peculiar ways. Sterling turned slightly, acknowledging her with a small, reassuring smile. "I'm practicing awareness. On Earth, soldiers are trained not just to fight, but to notice, to listen and understand the world around them. It keeps us alive." Serena's eyes brightened with quiet intrigue. "And you believe noticing small details is strength?" Sterling nodded gently. "Awareness is one of our greatest tools. It's often the difference between life and death, but it's also how we truly see others, how we understand the world. Have you ever stopped to truly notice everything around you?" Serena tilted her head thoughtfully, considering his words carefully. "Perhaps I've been too occupied by expectations and duties to pay attention to small moments," she admitted softly. "My life has always been planned, mapped out for me. Awareness seems like a luxury." Sterling smiled gently, meeting her eyes with understanding. "It's not a luxury, it's a necessity. Without it, we miss the beauty hidden in ordinary moments, the subtle signals people give us without words." He gestured quietly, inviting her to join him. "Close your eyes. Listen." Serena hesitated briefly before complying, her eyelids fluttering shut. For a moment there was silence, then Sterling whispered softly, guiding her. "What do you hear?" Serena's brow furrowed in concentration. "Water, flowing in the distance, leaves rustling, birds singing softly, and beneath all that?" Sterling prompted gently. She paused again, breathing slowly. "My own heartbeat," she whispered finally, surprised. "It's strong, calm, but I never noticed it before." Sterling smiled warmly. "That heartbeat is the most honest thing we possess. Listening to it teaches us patience, strength, and courage." Serena opened her eyes slowly, her gaze warmer, thoughtful. "You humans find wisdom in strange places." "Maybe," Sterling agreed softly. "But wisdom isn't always found in grand gestures. Sometimes it's in the smallest, simplest acts. Have you ever discovered a profound truth in something simple or ordinary?" As they walked slowly through the garden paths, they encountered Lyria near a small, secluded pond. The youngest princess sat quietly, trailing her fingers through the cool, clear water, lost in thought. She glanced up as they approached, offering a hesitant smile. "You two seem oddly peaceful," she observed quietly. "James was teaching me to notice," Serena explained gently. "It's strangely calming." Lyria turned curious eyes toward Sterling. "Will you teach me too?" Sterling nodded, kneeling beside the pond, touching the water softly. "Water has lessons too," he explained quietly. "Watch carefully." He dropped a small pebble into the pond. Ripples spread gracefully outward, overlapping gently. "What do you see?" Sterling asked softly. Lyria's eyes followed the ripples thoughtfully. "It disturbs the water briefly, but then the water calms again." "Exactly," Sterling agreed gently. "No disturbance is permanent. Life is much the same, sometimes chaotic, sometimes calm, but each moment, each ripple, leaves behind something important, a lesson, a memory." Lyria looked thoughtful, her gaze softening. "Then even struggles hold purpose?" Sterling met her eyes sincerely. "Especially struggles. They teach us resilience. Without storms, we'd never learn to appreciate calm." Alara watched from a distance, quietly observing her sisters interacting with Sterling. She hesitated, conflicted, yet undeniably drawn to the strange bond forming before her eyes. Finally, Sterling glanced toward her, offering a quiet invitation with a gentle nod. Reluctantly, she joined them. Her posture guarded, but eyes softened slightly. "And what lesson do you have for me?" she challenged, skepticism in her voice. Sterling regarded her carefully, understanding her wariness. "Your lesson is perhaps the hardest," he admitted gently. "To let yourself trust, even slightly." Alara raised an eyebrow skeptically. "Trust is not easily earned, human." "No," Sterling agreed quietly, "but perhaps it's easier when you see others clearly, beyond titles, power, or prejudice." He held her gaze steadily. "What did the ritual show you?" Alara hesitated briefly, then sighed softly, glancing away. "Strength I did not expect. Vulnerability I did not want to see, both yours and mine." Sterling nodded, gentle understanding in his eyes. "Then your lesson is clear. Strength isn't hiding vulnerabilities, it's facing them openly, honestly. It's the hardest form of bravery." Alara's expression softened subtly, her proud stance relaxing slightly. "Perhaps," she finally allowed quietly, "I admit you are more complex than I thought." Sterling smiled faintly. "Complexity is human. We are contradictions, each of us. Strength and weakness, courage and fear. But in complexity lies our greatest potential. Have you ever met someone who challenged your assumptions and changed your perspective forever?" The sisters exchanged thoughtful glances, each considering Sterling's quiet lessons. The gentle afternoon sun filtered softly through the garden, its warmth touching them gently, symbolizing perhaps the beginnings of trust and genuine understanding. As evening approached, Sterling stepped away quietly, allowing the princess's space to reflect alone. Walking slowly through the gardens, he felt quietly hopeful. Each princess carried her own doubts, fears, and pride, but slowly, subtly, they were learning. Sterling knew the path ahead remained uncertain. Bridging worlds was never easy, and unity between cultures always complex. But he also knew that great journeys began with small, quiet steps, and today perhaps they had taken the first step towards something extraordinary. He paused near a grand fountain, watching the water cascade gently, its sound soothing. Above, the sky darkened slowly, stars beginning to shimmer faintly. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new lessons. But tonight Sterling allowed himself a moment of peace, reflecting on bonds quietly forming, trust slowly earned, and understanding gently deepening. Have you ever experienced a moment where your perception of someone changed completely, and you finally saw them for who they truly were? Share your story below, because understanding, respect, and trust often grow from small, quiet moments when we truly notice each other. As days became weeks, an unspoken harmony settled over the royal palace of Vittoria. The initial tension of uncertainty and pride slowly gave way to quiet familiarity and subtle trust. Sterling found himself adjusting not only to the rhythm of life on this alien world, but to the subtle complexities and nuances of each princess